All right. So something about what enlightenment is. There is of course all kinds of misconceptions and misunderstandings what confusing enlightenment as some exalted state or long-lasting trance states, long-lasting samadhis, concentration states, long-lasting meditative absorptions. None of those are, they are not even a recognition of our fundamental basic nature, awakened nature, Buddha nature. They are not even that. Not saying that they couldn't be beneficial in relative sense, but the way how I see it is that it is not only important, but the actual path, the actual way to enlightenment can only happen through recognizing this fundamental nature and not through cultivating something else. This is something that I've given lots of thought, and I've received exact teachings of this from my gurus, that it should be like this. You know, there's plenty of sidetracks in samsara, and we should wish that there wouldn't be sidetracks like that in so-called Dharma teachings, right? We want to get rid of the shackles and not replace the shackles with golden shackles, right? So this is something that I have written and talked about on and on and on, how important it is to work with the two modes, access the pure, pristine, original state of being that is in every one of us, and make that recognition of that a priority, establishing that basic awareness, and then integrate everything there is to our mind, psyche, in the form of selfing, dualistic selfing, in the form of healing traumas, integrating it all back together. But then there is in many traditions, you know, I've studied so many traditions deeply enough that I have confidence in saying what I'm about to say. And you know, also what I was very fortunate to learn, of course, different modalities of energy healing, such as Reiki, professionally work in Shiatsu, which is like a type of massage that works with energy of the body. So I learned these things before I became a student and disciple of Terayama Roshi, who was a Japanese Zen master who was the most highly regarded master of Zen arts in all of Japan during his lifetime. And Terayama Roshi, I just put his picture there on as I was going through some boxes, moving boxes today, and I put his picture up. And you know, Zen arts and Zen calligraphy is about not only about writing, but about perceiving and feeling the energy of the writer through the black ink that has been written down. So when some Buddhist monk or a Buddhist master, or perhaps Taoist master from China or other countries in East Asia, when they have written down something 5 years ago or 500 years ago, if the piece of paper has survived, one can instantly sense that energy from that work of art. What does it mean? It means that through the energy stored in the black ink, we can experience the mind state of that calligrapher. If it is a calligraphy made by a person who was a living Buddha or a Mahasiddha, your own mind, your own Buddha nature will show up because of the effect of transmission from the calligraphy. So I was really fortunate to have the karma to study with Terayama Roshi for about 3 years before he passed away. And then because of my background in Shiatsu and Reiki and Zen arts, it was a good introduction, a necessary introduction for me to come to tantric teachings, esoteric teachings of yoga, and have like a initial some experience to start making any sense of these deities and deity energies and prana energy and shakti energy. So that was, I started with Terayama Roshi 20 years ago. So it's been a while. And as you know, I've spoken and written about this, the different stages of my study and how my understanding little by little accumulated. But then learning about 10 years ago, learning about the 13 bhumis, these centers that we use in the 13 bhumi model from Tirumular. I learned it from him first. I had maybe like two or three bhumi events, awakening experiences. And then I was practicing one day. I remember that day. I remember the place where I lived and where I meditated in that apartment. I was practicing Guru Yoga with Tirumular, and I had 2 or 3 awakening experiences. And I was probably, at that time, I was kind of wondering, how does it all work? Like, how do I, having met Amma already 20 times at least, and knowing about full enlightenment, Buddhahood. So I was probably thinking like how it all works and what is my current state, having had 2-3 shifts. How is my current state related? Or is it even related to Amma's state of mind? Or Tirumular's or Babaji's state of mind, who I had practiced Guru Yoga hundreds if not thousands of sessions by then. And I was practicing with him and not really asking this question from him, but he kind of just showed up and pointed out that, Baba, those centers you have inside your head, he pointed out that there are these centers and that there was 2 or 3 open. He pointed out the 6 inside and then pointed out the 7 above the head. And simply pointed that out. That you can see it's a succession. It goes in an order. It goes in an order. And I was like, of course. Makes perfect sense. Because I had already had made the observation that when I had my first awakening experience, first bhumi opening in the November of 2011, and then I had the second one 1 year and 3 months later, and then the third one, that was probably the pointer from Tirumular came after the third one. I realized that I'm not awakening into some completely new thing every time, but it's the same state, same awakened state, and it keeps getting kind of enhanced and more, not more expansive, but more, little bit more comprehensive each time. So when he pointed out that it's an order, it goes in an order, I was like, of course. Made perfect sense instantly. And so that's the very beginnings of my 13 Bhumi study, which of course later became the other one of the path maps we use in Amrita Mandala, the path map for Bhumis or Nadi purification. And then, as you know, for the past 2.5 years, again I have been learning new things from my gurus, while it has been necessary for me to do a lot of practice and study myself, figuring out how it all works. Because my gurus, they don't give me lectures. They have never given me lectures. They just say word or two or three and then leave the rest for me to figure out. Yeah. So I've had to do a lot of work to understand 13 Bhumis. Often my students say that when they haven't had a Bhumi opening in like 4 months, they get nervous that is there something wrong I'm doing. Look, I practiced 8.5 years, all day, every day, until I had my first. And then, even after that, it took me, after first Bhumi opening, it took me more than 5.5 years to get to open the 11th. And then to perfect the 10 samsaric Bhumis, it lasted from the first opening, it took 2011 until 2021 March, so about 10 years. About 10 years. So I'm the slowest of everybody in the Sangha. But that's just because I have a bit different path than my students. Anyway, so at this point, I'm still working on my meridians, but getting close. Fortunately, it's been pretty hard work. Like it's been bumpy work, and also demanding because, like I said, I've had to figure out lots of stuff, fill in all the holes that my gurus didn't tell me, and the way how they have taught me over the years and decades, I am grateful for them because it has made this process a journey for me as well. A journey of making discoveries. So if they gave me everything at once, like a commentary that stated everything, it wouldn't have been as inspiring for me. Yeah. So when you have to take responsibility in that way, like I often tell my students to do, don't come ask me. I have given you practices so you can figure out yourself. It gives you more authenticity when you finally figure things out. You really own the tools and own your own path. Or should, anyway. But my point of this little talk is to speak about enlightenment and the definition of it and the method or methods towards it. I was speaking about these Indian sadhus and yogis and saints and swamis that I have seen. And of course, I've done lots of Bhumi analysis and energetical analysis of living saints, sages, lamas, rinpoches, and also past people, past saints, sages, masters. Lots of energetical analysis, similar to what we did yesterday when we did that little meditative study session with Mount Kailash and Babaji and Agastya. That kind of study. So I often say that in spirituality there are no standards. Standards, did I say that clearly? That unfortunately there are no standards. So we might read about enlightenment or awakening from some source and go to that source or that lineage, and they give their understanding of enlightenment or awakening, not knowing that it is not necessarily what enlightenment holds in, what enlightenment, full enlightenment means. And this is what I mean by that there are no standards. It is not a problem to not have everybody use the same terms, but whatever terms you use, the whole terrain, the whole journey from unawakened state to fully enlightened state needs to be understood and explained and explainable. So we are not getting that many views in YouTube, so I might as well say a few examples, names of famous yogis and teachers, and state their Bhumi progress number and their meridian things. But perhaps I will refrain from saying names, because if sometime this video is watched by 100 people or 1,000 people, then some of them might get upset if I say names. But I'm thinking of a very famous and very influential Indian-born teacher in my mind, as an example of this not having clear criteria and standards for enlightenment. And his meridian system was completely purified. Meridian system was completely purified, and therefore there was that light, that radiance coming from him that was very, he had lots of students and lots of followers. His lectures was attended by thousands of people when he came in town. So he had, I would say, very good energy, very good energy. But on the Bhumi side of things, he had 7 Bhumis open. And this is a good example of the lack of standards that I don't think that Swami claimed to be fully enlightened, but he was definitely regarded fully enlightened by his close disciples who studied with him for a long time, and regarded fully enlightened by many others who know his work and are influenced of his writings even today. But he was not. With all respect and love, a pragmatical comment, he was not fully enlightened. If full enlightenment and when full enlightenment means complete purification of both subtle bodies, of both are necessary. And here is the thing, this is not my standard, it is the standard of Padmasambhava, standard of Babaji, standard of Agastya. And here is the, I keep saying here is the thing, because I have very limited vocabulary. But here is another thing about energetical sensitivity. Even people who have meditated for a long time, they will easily believe erroneous things if they do not have and do not exercise energetical sensation. So this is absolutely essential. Feeling and reading, studying energetics. It is really essential in esoteric paths. I would even say that it is tantric paths. I would even say that it is essential in all paths, developing energetical sensitivity. And the reason why it is so important in this connection to this point of not having standards regarding enlightenment is that if you have that example, influential Swami of the past century, who was really famous and lots of people regard and regarded fully enlightenment, if people had compared his energy simply with the founder of that lineage and had the ability to discern, to do analysis, they would have instantly felt that, okay, it's similar, but it is not same. With the founder of the lineage, there is more depth. It's complete. There is no more to go. While this lineage holder, there was more to go. And the reason why anybody can develop that sensitivity is because there is a fully enlightened nature we have. If you don't believe that we have fully enlightened nature, then of course, you can develop it. But the whole, if we use 13 Bhumi model as an example, the 13 Bhumis are part of every human being's subtle body. There is no Buddhist, no Zen Buddhist, no Pure Land Buddhist, no Tibetan Buddhist, no Kagyu, no Nyingma, no Shakya, no Bön, no Nath, no Christian contemplative, no Eckhart Tolle, no Ramana Maharishi. Nobody is an exception to 13 Bhumis. Everybody has them, because everybody has the subtle body is built of same nadis and same chakras. And this also applies to meridians. There is no person who didn't have the basic organs, heart, lungs, kidney, and so on, liver, and so on. There is no person who didn't have. So same meridians are there. Of course, if somebody is, like mentally handicapped, then a bit different. But my point is that all healthy people have exactly the same system, and that makes it possible to establish standards. That makes it possible. But the thing is that I cannot take a EEG measuring device. This is my exemplary object of a fancy technological measuring device. You can't take some things that you put some, meters that you put into your pulse in the wrist and a fancy hat on your head, and then you have an app on the computer, very fancy, costs $500,000 to do to all the devices. But there is no such thing in technology that can detect how many bhumis a human being has opened, or how widely or narrowly the meridians have been purified. It is not possible to measure that with technology. And it is not possible to, we can of course speak about the view and the theory in detail, in written word, in books. But bhumis are about energetical experience. And so you can't replace a verbal description of first bhumi, second bhumi, 10 bhumis perfected. You cannot replace the actual experience with verbal descriptions. And this is the biggest challenge. This is easily the biggest challenge. I've had this conversation since soon after I had learned the 13 bhumis. I have had this conversation with so many people. I have told them about that there is this path map, this measuring device, this device that actually can measure the, should I say, enlightenment from the perspective of Buddhist Dharma, that there is such a device. But when people hear, oh, it's about feeling energetics, they lose interest for one reason or the other. Even tantric practitioners, esoteric practitioners lose interest, which I find really strange, because at the same time there are so many people who wish to know and understand how it all works. They have had these few bhumi openings like me, and then they are making the question that, well, how does this relate to the full enlightenment that is so widely spoken in Buddhist literature, in yogic literature, in spiritual literature? But then they don't they don't become interested in the solution that is already offered by myself and Amrita Mandala. And also that excuse, well, it's about subtle energies, I don't have sensitivity, so I can't do that. I can't. Yeah, I practice these deity mantras and do guru yogas, but I can't do that. Why am I speaking about this? It's because there is so much wrong in the Dharma, yogic, meditative culture of the world. There is so much wrong in the whole world, isn't it? Where you can find peace. There are wars here and there nowadays. James just described when he went to a rich mall of a rich people, the Better Mall in Vancouver, Canada, and even there people are screwed up. Where you can find clarity of mind and real peace? Where? So I don't understand the way how the prevalent Dharma culture and yogic culture has reacted to my work, because it gives the solutions, and it's not about belief, it's about yogic work. But that's the thing, spiritual culture and yogic culture is full of samsaric traits. Also, for centuries, for thousands of years, one after the other, different masters from Hindu side, Buddhist side, the greatest of masters have been from Shakyamuni Buddha. He said that, do not believe anything I have said, but try and practice what I have taught you, to see for yourself if the teachings work and if they are valid and authentic. Throughout the history, masters have said exactly the same thing. Don't believe. Try, test, and see for yourself. To my knowledge, if we are talking about full enlightenment, wisdom side of it, path of wisdom and clarity, and the light body side of it, path of healing and light, that's what makes up full enlightenment. And I have studied the lineage heads, You know, we have so many wonderful lineage heads in the Mahasiddha family backing up Amrita Mandala. So many. I have spent thousands of hours in meditation with them, doing meditative inquiry, meditative study. I have no doubt whatsoever what full enlightenment is because of that. I have not read, well, I have also read, but I have not used reading of spiritual or yogic literature as a way to gather information and then try to make the connection from literature to my experience. This is what many do, and no problem with it, except if you don't have the tools and techniques to make the two meet. And this is a big problem in the Dharma culture. People want, there is internal need and desire to make it all work and maybe even become enlightened, but the tools are missing. The tools don't really meet the demand, so the information and theory remain separate from practice and from direct experience. But what I have done is to prioritize energy work. And this is how I teach my students. Because it is so simple and it is so enjoyable. Isn't it? Energy, sensing energies is internal work. Internal work. So it is already meditative. You're doing the study through the energy and the subtle bodies of your own body-mind. And the books that we have available in our mission is just the necessary information to conceptually understand what is where. But that gap between actual experience and information is immediately, it's possible to immediately cross that gap, close that gap. And this is how it should be. And I believe that with 13 Bhumis, there was once a time, sometime in the past, where this was understood. That's how it was taught, learned, and used. And what is interesting, I mentioned Garchen Rinpoche, who is a wonderful senior lama of a Kagyu school. I'm not sure if he's in other schools also, but Lama of Trikung Kagyu, over 80 years old, I believe. So I've spoken with two different scholars of Tibetan Buddhism and asked if they knew a lineage that used Bhumis, whether 10 Bhumis, 13, 16 or 21, as their path map. And both of them told me, both of them Tibetan Buddhist scholars and teachers, both of them said no, nobody uses it. But Garchen Rinpoche, I have that quote in Buddhas Among Us, where there are quotes of great masters of the past and present. He says that you can, when we take a break, you can go to the website and find the quote. But I'm not misquoting him in saying that he makes it clear that going through the Bhumis is just a gradual clarification of the mind and gradual getting used to knowing oneself as a Buddha. Yeah. So yeah, it is, in my view, it would be possible to have standards in this business. But yeah, I guess I just do, and we do together what opportunities are available for us. and just do our work, keep doing our practice and keep doing our Dharma work in whatever form, in the form of promotion and events and retreats and so on. And maybe we'll make a little change over time. So that's what I wanted to say about that.